The joke is said about this person who walks into a lawyer's office and he asks to meet with the lawyer. So he's ushered into the office and he asks the lawyer, do you dispense legal advice? The lawyer says, yes. And how much do you charge? So the lawyer says, I charge $250 for 3 questions. And what's your third question?
That's a lawyer.
In Yiddishkeit, we don't shy away from questions. We're always free to ask questions and try to understand. We're encouraged to ask questions. We even answer questions with questions in Jewish style. And there's no time of the year when questions is more in the forefront than Pesach. And we know we have the children ask the questions, the fair kashas. And it's not only the children, according to halacha, the Haggadah has to be said in a way of question and answer. And if there's no children, it's just your wife is supposed to ask, and if then you ask yourself, right? So we'll start today's shir with a few questions. We'll start with 3 questions. The first question is, we know that on Pesach, it's not just that we don't eat chametz, but chametz is, how do we say it? It's an absolutely banned substance. It's not only we don't eat it, but for the weeks beforehand we chase it, bal yira bal yematza, right? And it's chametz is b'mashu, it's not, we're
Batal b'shishim doesn't help.
Batal b'shishim under certain circumstances doesn't help. And the chumras that people have on Pesach, to be nizar, not to have chas v'shalom, even a drop. So there are many. I know in Chabad, many people try as much as possible to abstain from eating any processed foods. In other words, just buy the raw materials in the store and you make everything at home. I know there are some people who are makbid not even to say the word chametz on Pesach. They don't even say the word chametz on Pesach.
Not to think about chametz.
It's a little harder not to, Achan Shel Pesach, not to think about the pizza. It's not so easy.
Oh, that big line there.
Pizza shops are very busy.
You'll have a very difficult time finding another mitzvah in the Torah which we take as seriously as this. In terms of not only, obviously, we're not going to eat chametz, but to the extent that we go to make sure that not suffix, vex, sveka, suffix, vex, sveka, sveka, and chasing down not to have a drop. I don't know if there's another parallel for that in all year, in the whole year, in all our Torah mitzvahs and all the mitzvahs that we do, the vigor with which we chase down chametz and destroy every drop to make sure that we don't have even the minutest amount, even in a way a suffix on Pesach. Why? What's so bad about chametz? Why are we on this battle, this war against chametz? So we all know that the chametz rises. It represents gaiva. Some say it represents the Yetzer Hara. And at all costs, this has to be eradicated. That's a very nice answer. But that leads us immediately to the next question, which is the first question we're going to start off with today.
Why chametz?
If chametz is so horrible and it's so awful, then why are we eating it all year long?
During the year, yeah.
That's good.
If it's a spiritually harmful food, then why is it that only 7 or 8 days out of the year we stay away from it? I mean, the halachas of kasher are all year long. In other words, we believe that certain foods that we're supposed to be avoiding because for whatever reason, the spiritual energy that they have is harmful for our neshama. And if chametz represents gaiva and all the horrible things that it's supposed to represent, then why aren't we avoiding it all year long? I mean, I'm not complaining. Sorry? In the Beis Hamikdash, the whole year there was no chametz except for lechem hapanim wasn't chametz. The Shtei Alachem on Shavuos. Yeah, Shtei Alachem on Shavuos. There was no chametz in the Beis Hamikdash. Yeah, Loisiyafa chametz chalkam. There were two exceptions to the Beis Hamikdash. One was on Shavuos; they would bring 2 loaves of bread, and the other exception is carbon toida. So carbon toida had to be brought with 40 loaves, and 10 of those loaves were chametz. But that's also, in other words, and there's a similar question over there. If you can't have chametz in the Beis Hamikdash for the same reason, then how come Shavuos and carbon toida you are allowed? So that's the first question. The second question is, we know there are 3 Yomim Tovim which are min HaTorah. Pesach, and there's Shavuos, and there's Sukkos. And Sukkos, there's Sukkos, and there's Shmini Atzeres Simchas Torah, and they're preceded by Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Altogether, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkos, Shmini Atzeres, they constitute one holiday season. Maybe before Rosh Hashanah and Kippur we'll talk about it some more, about how they're one hemshech. It's not that there happens to be 4 different Yom Tovim, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot and Simchas Torah, and they happen to be packaged together for convenience sake. So if people want to take vacation, they're all within a 3-week period, but they're all extensions one of another. Now here's what's interesting. Shavuos is a big Yom Tov, Kabbalah Satera. So we can't just wake up on the morning of Shavuos and go to Shul, be Mekabel the Torah. We need to have Achana, we need to prepare. So we have a 7-week preparation period called Sfiras HaEmer, which the goof of the mitzvah, the body of the mitzvah is that every night we count, we say we count a certain number of days. The neshama of the mitzvah is that it's a 7-week period of refinement and character building, so that we become mentioned, that we're ro'it mimekabel the Torah. That's why we have the 7 midas and chesed shebechesed and gur shebechesed, all the midas, all our character traits and the sub-character traits which we're supposed to be working on during the Sfiras HaEmer. So by the time Shavuos comes, we're ready to be mekabel the Torah. The same thing is when it comes to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot. Once again, we don't just wake up on Rosh Hashanah in the morning and roll out of bed and go to Shul and hear Tkiyah Shofar and make the Eibishter our king, but we have an extended period of preparation of Chodesh Elul. By the Sfardim they say Slichas the whole Chodesh Elul, and by the rest of the Achenu B'nei Yisrael Ashkenazim, we don't do it the whole Elul, but still we are preparing and doing Tshuva the whole Elul, and we start saying Slichas closer to Rosh Hashanah. So by the time that the Yom Tovim come along, we're ready for it. But when it comes to Pesach, we don't find that there is any sort of spiritual preparation period to prepare us for the monumental Yetzias Mitzrayim that happens on Pesach. Why is it Shavuos has a hachana, and Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur Sukkot has an hachana, but Pesach doesn't seem to have any spiritual preparation? So that's the Zweite Kasha. The Dritte Kasha is, the fourth question, is a little of a klotz kasha. But in order to ask the fourth question, we need to give a little hakdama. We need to preface an idea. In which way are Yomim Tovim substantively different than lahavdil secular holidays? In which way are they different? I'm not talking about we eat matzah and they eat turkey. And we have chayes. I'm not talking about the details and the way that the holidays and lahavdil Yom Tovim are celebrated. But in a deeper sense, substantively, what is the difference between a Yom Tov and a holiday? And the answer is, as explained many times in Chassidus, there's the concept that says in the Megillah, "Va'yamim ha'ela nizkarim v'nasim," that these days, and this applies to Purim, but to every Yom Tov, that we remember what happened in the past, v'nasim, and the exact same thing occurs again. In other words, whereas by secular holidays, they're commemorations, something happened a certain amount of years ago, 100 years ago, 500 years ago, whatever it may be, so we are going to celebrate in commemoration of that event that occurred. In Yiddishkeit, we're not only commemorating. That's not the main Nakud of a Yom Tov. We're actually reenacting the exact same thing that happened on the first time. Niskarim V'nasim, the exact same thing that happened then, is going to happen every single year on that Yom Tov again. The only difference is that the first time when it happened in a physical way, and the coming years it happens in a spiritual way. And we're going to talk a little more about what that means. In fact, the Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos, when it talks about the Yom Tov of Chanukah, so it says that the Yom Tov happened, and L'Shana Haba, the next year, Kavum, they were Kaveya, these they established, these 8 days of Yom Tov. So Mefrek the Shaila, why did they wait till next year to establish the Yom Tov? Why not establish the Yom Tov right away when they saw the miracle happen? And one of the answers that's given is that you can't establish a Yom Tov right away, because then that would be just a commemoration. When they waited till next year, and next year when Chazal saw that the exact same Gili Elokus and the exact same Oyer and the exact same thing that happened last year happened again, that's when they realized it's a Yom Tov, and they established a Yom Tov for all generations, for perpetuity Chanukah. And every single Yom Tov has a theme, which is different one from another. No two Yom Tovim are the same. Every single Yom Tov is a certain Gili Elokus, a certain divine revelation, which enables us to serve Hashem in a certain area, whether it's on Yom Kippur that enables us to do tshuva, and on Sukkot Simcha, and on Purim Siras Nefesh, and on Pesach and on Shavuot Torah, and on Pesach it's the idea of Cherus. And every year on that Yom Tov, that same Gili which was then at that time, which caused the miracle on the first time, is once again revealed and allows us to tap into that and to accomplish the same thing in our own personal lives. And it's more than that. We know when Hashem created the world, so in Kabbalah, the Shalah talks about a three-dimensional creation, but not the three dimensions that we're familiar with. But the three dimensions are what's called Olam, Shana, and Nefesh. The Rosh Tevis of that, to remember, it is Ashan. There's Olam, which is the world, which represents the idea of space. Shana, year, which is the idea of time. So there's space and time. Those are the two basic parameters of the world. And then there's Nefesh. There's us, the human beings who inhabit Olam and Shana, who inhabit time and space. When Hashem created the world, in each one of these three dimensions, He created gradations, levels. Not everything was created equal. You know, we live in America, everything is equal, and everyone is equal, and every time is equal. And that's not correct. It's not correct at all. Starting with Olam, the world, so not all places are created equal. Eretz Yisrael is holier than the whole world, and that's the way it was when the Eibishter created the world already. He already created a certain kedusha in Eretz Yisrael, and then there's the Mishnah talks about Eser kedushas, there are 10 levels of kedusha within Eretz Yisrael, and then even outside of Eretz Yisrael, we know that it says when the Meraglim, when they were sent to Eretz Yisrael, so Moshe asked them to find out what the land is like, and there Rashi says, because there's Eretz Megadelos this, and there's Eretz Megadelos this, certain different lands have different energies within it, which cause that the inhabitants of them have certain traits, certain character traits. So every land is different. And obviously when you talk about nefesh, when you talk about human beings, there are many different levels of kedusha. And the obvious distinction has been Yisrael Amim, that there's Yidden and there's Goyim, and we're not all created equal. And in Klal Yisrael itself, there's Kehanim and there's Leviim and there's Yisraelim. And within that also there are different sorts of neshamas, and as soon we're going to learn in Tanya, some people have higher neshamas and some people have lower neshamas. And within the nations of the world also, there are Stam Goyim, and then there's those who had the merit to be from the 7 nations, and then there are those people who are Amalek. You have different... Chassidus, I'm not sure whether that's a created category or that's something which a person acquires through his behavior. But upon him, there are different levels of people. We do not believe that all people are created equal. And they're men, they're women. In other words, everyone is created different, and everyone has their purpose in serving the Eibishter, but akapanim, there's levels. And just like that's true in Shana, in Olam, in space, and just as that is true also in terms of
Timing.
not of time, of space, right? And of people, right? It's also true regarding time. Which means that when the Eibishter created the world, not all days were created equal. Every day was different, and every day had a completely different energy. And that's in many, many different levels. For example, if you look in Kabbalah, Monday and Wednesdays are not the best days. They're Gevurah Dike days. Yeah, Monday and Wednesday. I know in Chabad we don't move Mondays or Wednesdays. We move. I'm saying is we don't move houses. We try not to. Tuesday is a very good day. Tuesday is Yom Shehuch Bal Boi Ki Tov. The Rebbe says Ki Tov twice in it. Tuesday is an amazing day. Obviously, there's Shabbos Kodesh. Different months have different energies, as we know very well. Others, Bari Mazli, others a great month. Nisan is a month of Nisan.
So what's the wisdom behind this master?
And there are what?
What's the wisdom behind this master plan? We have such disparity.
Because the point is that the Eibishter didn't create a monolithic world with many different components, and every single one of these components has to be harnessed to serve the Eibishter in its way. And certain days had very special energies behind them. One example of such a day that had a very special energy behind it is Tes Vav Nisan, the first day of Pesach, which is why a lot of special things happened on Tes Vav Nisan. Not only the Yidden going out of Mitzrayim. So when we say that Avram kept Pesach, we know that Avram kept Pesach, Lot kept Pesach, even hundreds of years before the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim. Why were they keeping Pesach? What was special? The Yidden hadn't gone out of Mitzrayim yet. They're commemorating something that's going to happen? No. Because Avram was in touch, he was a Merkava to the Lakus, and Avram was in touch with all the spiritual energies. And when Tes Vav Nisan came, he felt that today is a special day, it's a Yom Tov, and it's a day when Chayrus is present. Now, the Yidden will go out of Mitzrayim 400 years later, but here's the most important key. The Yom Tov isn't special because the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim on that day. Tes Vav Nisan isn't special because the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim on that day. It's the opposite way around. The Yidden went out of Mitzrayim on that day because it's a special day. Because it's a day which is Mesugo for Chayrus. In the Lashon of Chazal, Megalgalin Zchus Liyem Zakai. Every Yom Tov that happens, there's a reason why it happened on that day. And it's not the day is special because it happened, but to the contrary. And we find this in many different ways. Sorry, Tisha B'Av is a great example of that.
It says it's it's a day of Peronius, long before the Korban by Rishon.
When did it become a day for Peronius?
Oh, but by the Meraglim.
By the Meraglim, that's what you think. But the Zohar tells us something different. The Zohar tells us about Tisha B'Av something very fascinating. It says that we know there are 365 days to the solar year. And there are 365 Giddim in the body. And there are 365 Lysises, Mitzvot Lysises. We have here three 365s. So one might say that they're random, but obviously if you understand that everything, the neshama of everything, that means that these three are related, which means there's a day of the year that corresponds. There's one day of the year which corresponds to one Gid in the body, which corresponds to one Mitzvot Lysisa. So the Zohar tells us that when Yaakov was fighting with the Sar Shel Esav, so the Sar Shel Esav was trying to completely destroy Yaakov, obviously. But he wasn't able to. He was only able to impact one of his Gidim, the Gid Hanasha, which obviously that corresponds to the Aveira, the Lysisa of Gid Hanasha. As we said, every Gid in the body, that one's the easy one. The Gid Hanasha corresponds to that Lysisa. And says the Zohar that what day of the year did that correspond to? To Tisha B'Av. The Gid HaNasha in the body and the Mitzvah Lois of Gid HaNasha corresponds to Tisha B'Av. So on that occasion, the Malach of Esav managed to damage the energy of Tisha B'Av, and that's why it's a day when all those bad things happen. So it's a perfect example of is Tisha B'Av a bad day because the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed in it, or was the Beis HaMikdash destroyed in it because it's a bad day? Because Esav managed to take control of that day. So we have it in both ways.
But they say it's going to be a Yom Tov loss.
Because loss of love, the energy is going to be fixed.
They'll switch the energy.
Somewhat, yeah.
Was it only a bad day then, or was it a bad day from for his son?
That's a good question. That's whether that day, whether always a bad day, maybe it was just that he revealed. That's a good question. So I remember around 20-something years ago, so the Rebbe was talking, was the Shabbos before Chav Cheshvan. And Chav Cheshvan is the birthday of the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe. So the Rebbe said something very interesting, and it's printed, the Rebbe edited it. And the Rebbe said, our generation was Zoicha, that the specialness in Chav Cheshvan was revealed by the fact that the Rebbe Rashab was born on that day. In other words, not that it's a special day because the Rebbe Rashab was born on that day, but that because he was born, so it's revealed that it's a special day. If a tzaddik is born that day, it has to be a special day. Not because he was born that day. And that's why, again, that's why Avram kept all the Yom Tovim, they were kept beforehand, because there was that, by the way, I believe it's the Chidush Harim says that the Mitzvot Loisasa of Loisavashal Gedi B'Chalevi corresponds to the first day of Shavuos, and that's why we have Milchigs and Fleishigs on Shavuos, and with a separation between them, because that day is a special shaykhis to the Mitzvot Loisasa of Loisavashal Gedi B'Chalevi. I'm pretty sure it's the Chidush Harim that says that.
Nice.
There are a few places we don't know the correspondence of every day to every single one of them, but there are a few. I saw another place a correspondence of Rosh Hashanah to shaving, to the Isra of shaving, whatever. But be as it may, every single day is a different day, is a different energy, and the Yom Tov is a product of that energy. So what does that mean to us? That means that when we're celebrating Pesach, we're not commemorating an event that happened 2,400 and whatever, 3,300 whatever years ago. But rather the very same energies and Gili Elokus and specialness of that day, which caused that the Yidden should be able to leave Mitzrayim on that day, is present once again, and once again we're able to go out of Mitzrayim. So this is also a preface to my third question. Still remember the first two? We're all in Mitzrayim, not only collectively. Not only collectively as Am Yisrael are we still in Galus, but every single one of us also is in our own personal Mitzrayim. As we know, the word Mitzrayim is the same as Meitzarim. Meitzarim, which means our limitations, and we all have our limitations. Many different aspects of our life, everyone, as they themselves know about themselves. So my question is, if every Pesach, Yetzias Mitzrayim is reenacted, then why aren't we pulled out of our Mitzrayim on Pesach? Why is it that Pesach comes and Pesach goes year after year, and we're still in Mitzrayim? It's a klutz kasha, right?
No.
It's a yam me'ela neskarim v'nasim. It should happen again. This exact same oyer, which was around then, is around today. Why isn't it happening again? No, anyone has any answers to this question?
Because we are a human being.
Because we're human beings.
Then, they were much higher level. With Matzo, they wrote every generation, it's less and less and less. We are nothing.
So your name is Hassan, right? That's your first name or last name?
First name.
First name. So Hassan says that the Yidden then were on a very high level, and therefore... What's your...
Worse part. Even worse.
What's your name?
Reuven.
Rabbi Reuven. Rabbi Reuven has a very good response. Rabbi Reuven says that the Yidden weren't on a very high level. Not only weren't they on a very high level, but they were on the lowest level possible.
So
Had they dropped one level lower, they would have been lost for perpetuity. That's a good question.
High level.
So you're saying that by Kriyas Yamsuf they were...
They had already left a week ago. They were at a different level.
No, but only 20% you made of that.
Only 20% made it out. That's how bad they were. And when they're going through, you're talking about Kriyas Yamsuf, they're going through to the Yamsuf, and the Malachim above are screaming, it says in the Medrash, the Eibishter. No, that's something else. Halal lo'iv David Zara, halal lo'iv David Zara. They're Eiv David Zara. What Bali Madriga? But since you mentioned the Maisi Yad Tev Mayam, left on the side, say a beautiful word from the Rabbi of Heschel in Chanukah Satira. He says, it says that you bring on the Gemara says, it's Mesachs Megillah, that when the Yidden were going through the Yamsuf, So the Malachim wanted to say Shira. And the Eibishter said, Ma'aseh Yada Tevim Bayam V'atam Emim Shira. So the Pavus, the Shaila on this, everyone speaks about it. So 1 second, but the Yidden did say Shira. So why were the Yidden allowed to say Shira and the Malachim weren't allowed to say Shira? A lot of it's a big question. But those will connect it also with the fact that we don't say full halal on the second days of Yom Tov. Sorry? That's one reason. Yeah, but the why did the Yidden say Oz Yasher? Because the Karbanis. That's, I know, but there are those who connect it. So the Rebbe of Heschel says, it says in Gemara, it says, I believe it's in Sech Sanhedrin, another thing that happened the first day of Pesach, first night of Pesach, talking about how we find a lot of times a lot of things that happen on a certain date. As in Shivas Tammuz and Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah, you look in Masechus Rosh Hashanah, a whole list of things that happen on Rosh Hashanah. First day of Pesach, a lot of things happened. One of the nisim that happened the first day of Pesach was that Sancharev's armies outside of Yerushalayim, they were completely all destroyed. So the miracle happened the first day of Pesach. And again, based on our understanding that there's certain special days on the calendar, we understand why there's groupings of things that happen on a particular day. So the Gemara says, how were they killed? How were all the soldiers of Sancheiriv killed? So different opinions. One of the opinions is that the heavens opened up, and the armies, they all heard the Malachim saying Shira, and they all died from that. In other words, the Neshamas all went out. So he says, Rabbi Heschel says, that when the Yidden are going to the Yam Suf, so the Malachim sees that the Eibishter wants to take care of the Mitzvah, and they say, okay, so let us say Shira, and we'll take care of the situation. We'll all die.
Like in South
Like it's going to happen. Yeah, we'll do the work for you. So the Eibishter says, Ma'aseh Yada Tevim Bayam, my Yidden were drowning in the Nilvos. They threw my Yidden into the Yiddish Kindalach, into the Nilvos. V'atem Eimim Meshira, and you want to give them a pleasant death by singing Shira? No. It's going to be Midah Keneged Midah, and they're also going to drown, just like that was a side word, a Shvi Shal Pesach word. The Yidden were on the lowest level possible. And the Eibishter had to swoop in and pull them out of the Imkei HaTumah, the depths of Tumah. They didn't deserve to be redeemed. As we say in the God of Va'at Eirim Ve'erya, the Yidden were completely naked of mitzvahs. So they didn't deserve to be redeemed, but they were redeemed anyways. So if I don't deserve to be redeemed on Pesach, okay, why should that be an impediment to my being redeemed? In other words, every other Yom Tov, Taka, you can taina and say that I need to be ready for the Yom Tov. If I want to experience the Yom Tov truly, I need to be ready. And by the way, now we're seeing connections between the different questions I asked. That's why when it comes to Shavuos, if I want to truly experience Shavuos, I have to prepare for 7 weeks beforehand. If I want to really experience Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot, I have to prepare. I have to do Tshuva, I have to prepare Halal. There is no preparation for Pesach. Why? Because if we're preparing for Pesach, then it wouldn't be Pesach. The whole point of Pesach is that we're on the lowest level, and from there, without deserving it whatsoever, the Eibishter pulls us out, and that's why we know there are 3 Yom Tovim, and they are Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Pesach is Avram Avinu, which is the Eibishter's Chesed. We did Chesed, it was pure kindness. We didn't deserve to be taken out, but the Eibishter takes us out. So therefore, that brings us to our question: so why aren't we being redeemed? Why does Pesach come and Pesach goes and we're not redeemed? And obviously the even better question than that is, so how do I get redeemed? In other words, let's not, instead of trying to figure out why last year and 2 years ago and 3 years ago it didn't happen, what do I do this year, Taka, to experience Pesach? But at the same time, that seems to be a catch-22, because if I have to do something,
That's arrogance, preparation.
and Pesach, they didn't have to do anything. So what are the questions we have? We started off asking why Chametz, if it's so bad, why is it only on Pesach, is it not allowed? And then we asked, why is it Dal Yom Tovim have a Chana, not Pesach? But I think we already pretty much answered that question. And the third question is the most practical question of all, which is, what's with us? If Pesach is such a special day, it's a day when the Eibishter's redemptive koiches are on display and manifest, so why is it that we still sometimes stay stuck in Galus after Pesach also? Yes.
In Mitzrayim, we did before you see Mitzrayim, we did two things. You Zohar, Korban Pesach and Bris.
Very good.
So that perhaps those issues, those things, are something that even we can do, even though you're laying out the idea before Pesach we don't really do anything. It maybe it's not so. It's not.
You're very correct. There were two mitzvahs the Yidden did, and we're going to get to that later. I hope so. And if not, remind me.
All right.
In other words, what is Korban Pesach and Bris? Why is it that the Yidden, they didn't have any mitzvahs? That was fine. What is special and what is symbolized by these two mitzvahs that allow the Yidden to be redeemed? And that's going to work together with what we're talking about.
I think I have a little answer with the question. If Hashem said the Shira and redeemed the Jewish nation, and they weren't worth, right? They were lamited sharetuma. So every year, we're spiritually getting out our mitzarim from our heart, and we say, Hashem, you did it to them 3,000 years ago. Do it for us too. Get us out.
But how are we going to do it to make sure that it works this year?
Daven better.
Daven better.
Do more chesed.
That is something the Yidden did, by the way. Vanitzak, they did daven. That was one thing they did do. Maybe that's something taka we have to do. We have to daven to Hashem. So the Yidden taka and Mitzrayim were on the lowest level spiritually possible. And nevertheless, we know that the Eibishter came down. Ani v'lei malach, ani v'lei saraf, ani v'lei hashaliach.
That's me.
Hashem himself came down and pulled us out of Mitzrayim. And since we asked three questions, but Pesach's coming, we may as well ask a fourth question. I was waiting for someone to ask why we're doing three questions instead of four questions. Then I would have said that is the fourth question. But no one asked it, so we have to add in the fourth question. What's the significance of that part of the Haggadah? Why is it important to know that the Eibishter did it not through a malach, and not through a tzaraf, and not through a shliach? What does that tell us?
Showing the closeness between Hashem and us.
Very
and
good.
himself.
The Eibishter comes down, as Alter talks about it in Perik Mem Vav and Tanya. Imagine a big king coming down, and imagine there's a person, a lowlife, and a person who's covered in filth. And in addition to that, he's sitting in the middle of the town, the city dump, the garbage dump. And the big king comes together with all the servants and doesn't send someone to go and to bring him out. He goes down to the garbage dump and himself goes and takes him and brings him into the palace. And that's what Yetzias Mitzrayim really is. Yeah, the Eibishter could have sent a malach. Yeah, I know there are answers that a malach would have been corrupted, but in Pasha Pshat, Hashem could have sent a malach, he could have sent a shliach. But Hashem says, no. I'm going down to, this is my child, I'm going down to the garbage dump, to Mitzrayim, Erva Sa'aretz, the lowest possible, and I'm going to bring them into the palace, which is what happened when the Eibishter, the Kervano Malkeinu, the Eibishter brought him close to us by Matan Torah. And that happens every single year again on Pesach. The Eibishter comes to us and he wants to pull us out of Mitzrayim. But there's one thing that we have to do in advance. And I said there is no preparations. The women are downstairs. And when I said there is no preparations for Pesach, they were probably thinking that I fell on my head. No preparations for Pesach? What no preparations for Pesach? There is one preparation for Pesach. The preparation for Pesach is that we have to get rid of the Chametz. And obviously, if we have to get rid of the Chametz physically, that means spiritually also, that's an avodah, because everything physical is a reflection of a spiritual reality.
Although there was no Isser Chametz before Yetzias Mitzrayim, so it's not a direct parallel.
There was a Isser Chametz. Not before, but that night, what do you mean? The night they had to get rid of the Chametz. The Isser Chametz was for the first day of Pesach, Tesvav Nisan, there was Isser Chametz.
At the Seder in Mitzrayim,
Yes.
was there an Isser Chametz?
Yes, absolutely. And the whole day, the whole Tesvav.
But this was only because Betzikam lo speak lachmis. It's only reason.
That's something else. That's a different topic for a different day. The Alter Rebbe has a different understanding of that also. The Frierdiker Rebbe says that the Alter Rebbe, when he went to visit, went to learn by the Mazutcha Magid. And when he came back, the first time when he came back for Pesach, So when he did B'dikas Chametz, it took him the entire night, and it was one small room, the house. It took him the entire night. And the understanding is that he wasn't just physically checking for the Chametz, but it was B'dikas Chametz is an Aveda. I have to get rid of the Chametz. And Chametz, as we know, is the idea of Gaiva. So the one thing that we have to do before Pesach is we have to get rid of the Gaiva. We can have every other flaw in the world, and we can still go out of Mitzrayim. But we can't have Chametz. Can't have Chametz. The Yidden were Shoyim and they went out. They were Evdei Avodah Zarah and they went out. But you can't have Chametz. Why? Why Gaiva? Why is that? What about all the other bad midas that we have? What's terrible about Gaiva?
Hashem hates Gaiva. It's one of the...
Hashem hates Gaiva, that's true. But why is it, what's unique about Gaiva in that it impedes our ability...
Blocks Hashem from coming into our lives.
There you go. Hashem says, I want to take you out of Mitzrayim. And our Gaiva is us holding on to Mitzrayim and saying, Hashem, I'm not letting you take me out. What does Gaiva mean? Gaiva means I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of the way I am. I'm happy with myself. The whole point is the Eibishter says, I want to take you out of Mitzrayim. I want to take you to a better place. I want to take you to Matan Torah. I want to give you the Torah. And you're saying, why? All is good. I'm a great guy. I'm wonderful. I'm loving it here in Mitzrayim.
You miss the shum.
I want to. If you want to leave Mitzrayim, what are you proud of? Why are you proud of where you are right now? What are you so excited about yourself for? You're in Mem Tes Shari Tuma, and Hashem says, I can pull you out of there, but you have to want to come. You have to turn to the Eibishter and say, I'm in a horrible, terrible, awful place. I have nothing to be proud of where I am right now. I'm like a piece of matzah. Please, right now, I'm submitting to you. I am going to follow you. I'm going out into the desert. I'm going to follow you. I am going to do it your way and not my way. Until now, I was doing it my way, and it was awful. It didn't work. It didn't get me anywhere. And now, Eibishter, I'm having the bittul, the anava, to say to the Eibishter, I am right now, I realize I'm broken, I'm in Mitzrayim, I'm in a horrible place. I'm letting you take me out of Mitzrayim. That's all the Eibishter wants. And that's why we find that by Mitzrayim, who went out of Mitzrayim? Someone mentioned before, 80% didn't go out. What was the chet of that 80%? What was their avera?
They didn't want to go.
They didn't want to go out. That's all. That was the only thing, the only criteria for going out is wanting to go out. And what does it mean to want to go out? Is to truly be broken and to be humble and realize I'm in an awful place and the way I've been doing things until now didn't work and my way doesn't work and I want the Eibishter's way.
Why didn't they want to go out?
Why don't you want to go out from your current situation?
It's not the same as being here. Because they were tormented.
Okay. You ever heard of something called Stockholm Syndrome?
Yeah.
Okay. Just today, I actually heard on the news, they're talking about it's a 3-year anniversary, I don't know if you guys remember, that the 3-year or 2-year, then like a few hundred Nigerian girls who were kidnapped by the terrorists. So some of the girls, they gotten back, and they didn't want to go back. They were happy in their bondage. It's actually a normal phenomenon. But you had Dasan and Aviram went out of Mitzrayim. Think about that. Okay, so according to Targum Yonus, maybe they went out a week later, but they went out of Mitzrayim. How's that? And then you had the person who carried out Pesach Micha went out of Mitzrayim. And the Yidden as a whole were Evdei Avodah Zarah, they went out of Mitzrayim. And 80% didn't go out. What was because the Eibishter says there's one prerequisite only. And that is that you have to be willing to go out of Mitzrayim. Not willing, you have to want to. To want to go out of Mitzrayim. When you're in a terrible place, spiritually, when you're in Mitzrayim, the very first step that you have to do talks about how between Chassidus talks about how between one yesh and another yesh there has to be ayin in middle. Between one something and another something, if you want to change from one something to another something, you have to completely abnegate everything from beforehand. That's be the ayin, that's be the nothingness in the middle. You want to take a seed and you want it to grow into a tree, you put it in the ground, it rots in the ground, and from there grows the tree. You want to grow, you have to have the matzah. The Gemara tells us that Reb Zera, this is even in levels of kedusha. The Gemara tells us that Reb Zera, he was in Bavel, and then he went to Eretz Yisrael to learn Talmud Yerushalmi, which is a higher level of learning because Eretz Yisrael is higher than Ein Torah Keteiras Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara says that he fasted 2 years, one is 40 fasts, or rather it's 100 fasts, and he forget everything that he learned in Bavel. Because he knew that as long as he's stuck to Bavel, to that way of learning, he'll never truly be able to get the Torah Eretz Yisrael. They state. Okay, so the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, you're not allowed to forget them that Torah, it's a Shailum, befragt them, but they state. Especially if you want to leave from a place of klipa, of memtes sharitum, you want to go, the first thing there has to be is the bittul. The understanding that I'm nothing, and right now I'm in a horrible place, and I want to go, I want to leave. And that's when the Eibishter is able to pull you out, and you're not holding with the other hand and saying, no, we're funny people. Yes, take me up, but no, I want to stay. Yes, I want to leave, but no, I don't want to. When we have that confusion, that's what's not allowing the Eibishter to take us out. Yes.
Now, based on everything you've been saying, what do you do during these days to demonstrate you want to get out? Because we understand Elul, as you said, is 40 days, is a month of preparation, Shuvah and Shofar and Slichos, but we don't have Slichos before Pesach. Just the opposite. We don't take Tachim in Nisan. So where's the Tshuva?
The point is like this. There's two avodas, and this is really the crux and the point of what we're trying to say here today. There's one avodah of trying to grow myself. I want to become a more spiritual person, a more refined person, a holier person. And for those of you who come to the Tanya Share on a weekly basis, we know everything starts inside. We're not talking about behaviors over here. When we say I want to become a more refined person, a more edler person, Sfira So'emer, it's not only about, when you're working on chesed, it doesn't mean I'm working only on giving tzedakah, but it's also an avodah pnimis, it's an internal avodah in working on our midas. To become a Baal Madriga, to become a holier person, more refined, a person who has Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, doesn't have, refines the midas, etc. For the other Yom Tovim, whether it's Shavuot or whether it's Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, we need to reach a certain level in order to be able to really experience that Yom Tov. And then there's another Avodah, which is known as Kabbalas Oil. Kabbalas Oil is not a Madriga, not a level. You can be at any level possible and you can have Kabbalas Oil. Kabbalas Oil means regardless of who I am, and regardless of what I'm feeling, and regardless of whether I have a refined character or a lowly character, right now I'm putting myself aside and I'm doing what Hashem wants. And that is the beginning. The beginning of Avodas Hashem, period, always begins with Kabbalas Ol. And that's not a level. That's about submission. It's about abnegation to himself and realizing that I have to do what the Eibishter wants, because if I do what I want, I'm in Mitzrayim. And that's why it doesn't take a long preparation period for Pesach. Because if I'm trying to achieve a certain level, I'm trying to gain a certain amount of knowledge of Torah, I'm trying to have a certain sitkus, a certain feelings, that takes time, and that takes days of davening and learning and meditation, whatever it may be. But bittul takes a moment. Kabbalah soil, because it's not a level. And it's the starting point. It's the starting point of where you are. Always the starting point is Kabbalah soil. So Pesach, when we're eating the matzah on Pesach, the lechem oini, that's what we're thinking about, is how we're aniyim and we're submitting ourselves to the Eibishter's will and say, Eibishter, I'm giving myself over to you, I'm following you into the desert, I'm doing your Torah, I'm doing your mitzvahs, I'm yours. I realize that my way doesn't work. And here's what's interesting is, once we made that jump out of Mitzrayim, or to be more accurate, the Eibishter pulls us out of Mitzrayim. If and when we're willing and allow the Eibishter to do so, then we embark on Sfira So'imer. Then we say, okay, Now it's time to taka we become mentioned. That we become kind people and wonderful people and holy people. And then we move on for 7 weeks till the point that we have Shavuos. And when Shavuos comes along, at that point, not only are we allowed to eat Chametz, but we even, as mentioned, we bring Chametz in the Beis HaMikdash. Why? Because at that point we're allowed to be proud, because we've taka accomplished. We've accomplished in the area of Kedusha. We've just had 7 weeks of Sfira Sa'omer. The word Sfira also means shining, Malashon Evan Sapir. We've shined ourselves and refined ourselves, and at this point we have something what to be proud of. As the Pasuk says about the Melech Yehoshaphat, who was a tzaddik, Vayigbal libay b'darkei Hashem. Vayigbal libay, he had Vayigbal, but it was b'darkei Hashem, because I'm following the Eibishter, I'm doing what the Eibishter wants, and I'm a holy person, and then we can have Chametz. At what point in time is Chametz toxic and so horrible and terrible to the point that we have to chase it out, even the most minute amount of it, is when we're in Mitzrayim. When we're in Mitzrayim, when we're in a bad place, and we want to leave Mitzrayim and connect to the Hashem, that's where even a drop of Chametz, a drop of arrogance, a drop of self-satisfaction, I'm happy with where I am, smugness, impedes our ability to leave Mitzrayim and to head into positive territory. When you're in negative territory, Chametz is the one thing that's going to stop you from moving into positive territory. Once you're in positive territory, a little Chametz is not the end of the world. Because again, that Chametz can be positive. Carbon Taida is something similar. Carbon Taida also is when we're thanking Hashem, we're feeling proud of what Hashem did to us. So I think we've answered all our questions. We asked why Chametz isn't allowed on Pesach. The rest of the year it is. Why we weren't redeemed and how to become redeemed. It's about, we don't have to be Bali Madrega, but the one thing we do have to get rid of on Pesach, and we really have to focus on this, the Avodah Pnimis, the spiritual Avodah of Pesach, is getting rid of our Gaiva, understanding that we're in Mitzrayim and recognizing, and complete willingness to submit to Hashem and to follow the Eibishter on the path to Mount Torah. And if and when we get rid of our Chametz, absolutely, then we are allowing ourselves that the energy of the day, which is present every single year on Pesach, should take hold of us and bring us to places where we could not have gone on our own at all. And we also answered why there is no extensive period of spiritual preparation for Pesach. And just to conclude, we have the idea you brought up, which is that there were 2 mitzvahs that the Yidden did before they left Mitzrayim, which is Bris Milah and Karban Pesach. And if you look at the nature of both of those mitzvahs of Bris Milah and Karban Pesach, you'll see that both of those mitzvahs are mamish the theme of what we're talking about. They're mamish the idea of Matzo, which means that Hashem told the Yidden when they're Mitzrayim, the one thing you need to do right now is you need to reject and repudiate Mitzrayim. And instead connect to me and be willing to let me do the job and take you out. And Karban Pesach and Bris Milah are the 2 sides of that. Karban Pesach was the Yidden's repudiation of Mitzrayim and Avodah Zarah and everything. Mishchu kulachem tzoyin, Hashem says, Mishchu yadchem Avodah Zarah, reject the Avodah Zarah, and I want you to go to have the Mesiras Nefesh in front of the Egyptians. You're taking their God, and you're murdering their gods, and you're putting your lives in danger, but you're doing that. That's what I want you to do. Utterly disassociate yourself from Mitzrayim and everything that has to do with Mitzrayim to do what I want. And to connect to Hashem. And connect to Hashem in a way of bris. What is the idea of a bris? We're all connected to Hashem by virtue of the fact that we have a bris. So are we Bali Madrega because we have a bris? We're not Bali Madrega. A bris, the idea of a bris is a connection which transcends our intellect, which is really the idea of matzah and the idea of bittul, of I'm not doing it because I understand and because I feel, because that's all the way I used to do everything. In other words, submission to Hashem doesn't mean I understand that it's the right thing to do and I'm going to follow my seichel, because then that's again about me. Submission is nasa and nishma, before the nishma, before the understanding. And this is symbolized by the idea of bris, which idea of a bris is a connection to Hashem, which happens before we even have any seichel whatsoever, at 8 days old. When we connect ourselves to Hashem, we say, before we start our life, before anything, the first thing we do is we're completely submitting and entering into this unbreakable covenant with Hashem. And that's really what Hashem wanted. He says, you want to go to Mitzrayim? Stay there. Repudiate the Avodah Zarah, repudiate Mitzrayim and everything it stands for. Connect yourself to me through a bris, which is what they did. And at that point, you're still Nemta Shari Tuma. You're still there. You're still not worthy of redemption. But now you're allowing me to come and to pull you out and to bring you towards Matan Torah. And that, in a nutshell, I'll take some questions now, but that is the basic idea that you'll find in Chassidus in terms of Pesach. And because someone said about the dough rising, after some questions, I'll add one more idea. Yes?
Korban Pesach, you had to have a bris before, so they didn't have a bris before.
I believe the Medrash says,
I know, there is a medrash, but there are also afterwards, they in the desert, before they went into Mitzrayim, into Israel,
they didn't have Korban Pesach the whole time. The only time they did Korban Pesach was the second year. They did not do Korban Pesach all the years they were in the desert.
So
They stayed.
you go by this medrash that they were transported out, and then they did,
The Bris Milah?
yeah.
I never heard that Medrash.
Oh, so then, how is it that they were able to do the Korban Pesach?
The Medrash says, I believe that Moshe Rabbeinu made his Korban Pesach. And Hashem made a miracle, and the aroma of the Korban Pesach spread throughout Mitzrayim, or throughout Goshen. And all the Yidden came running to Moshe and asking him, they want Korban Pesach also. And Moshe says, you have to have a bris for that. So they went into the Korban Pesach. But upon him,
They
Yeah.
all did a bris?
but I'm not sure what the relevance of this is. The fact which came first, which came second. The Yidden had to go and take the sheep for Korban Pesach already on the 10th day of Nisan. And I believe that the Bris Milah was on Erev Pesach, as they do Tzachmer. But upon him, those are the two components that were necessary in order for them to go out of Mitzrayim. Both of them represent the idea of, again, repudiation of Mitzrayim and submission, bittul, to Hashem. And
For 2 minutes, my most emotionally and spiritually seder that I had about 25 years ago, I had about 45 people in the house. My wife's friend asked us if she can bring her father from nursing home. He's about 95 years old. I said, of course. So he came, and I'm conducting the seder. When we come to Manishtana, I said, today I do change. We start from the elderly, we go to the children. He stood up, started crying. He said, for 50 years I didn't say Manishtana, and he said Manishtana by heart. You have to see all of us were crying, but it was crying of tears of simcha. To see, for 50 years he didn't have seder. And he remembered Manishtana when he was in the concentration, and he remembered, and then he not associate with Yiddishkeit anymore. But he stood up there and said this, the Manishtana.
Wow.
This is unbelievable. That's still the last day of my life I remember this scenery. All the people was there.
thank you for sharing that. So I just want to make one point also, that in terms of this is something which is connected to Pesach, but also in general in our lives when we're encountering a Mitzrayim, because even though Pesach, the time of Pesach is Pesach, and that's the time when the Eibishter's, the spiritual energies are most aligned to this. But a message we have from Pesach Sheni is that when Yidden weren't able to do Pesach in the right time, but when they went and when they were stubborn, insisted, the Eibishter says, okay, so you can do it another time also. And whenever we feel ourselves in a Mitzrayim, we want to get out. And a lot of times we have whole plans how we're going to get out. You make a plan this way, and you think, and you feel, and you have this way and that way. Einstein once said, whether he said it or not, I don't know, but they say he said it, that you can't fix a problem using the same way of thinking that got you into it in the first place. It's Our minds got us into the problem in the first place, and then we're trying to use our minds to get us out of the problem. But our mind is the problem in the first place. And the answer when we're in a Mitzrayim is not to make plans and to figure out and to work on it. But I mean, and there is a place for that, but that's later. The step number one is simply submission and saying, Eibishter, I'm going to do it your way, and a strong resolve to follow what the Eibishter says in this area. The bittul, the matzah, the Kabbalah soil. And after that, once that's finished, then already you can move on, and then you can start thinking and figuring out, and then your mind is in a safe place. But the first thing is you have to want to leave Mitzrayim and actually leave Mitzrayim, and that is always the step one is Kabbalah soil, not all the thinking. And in terms of someone mentioned over here when the Isser of Chametz was nohig. So the Gemara is very clear that by Pesach Mitzrayim the Isser of Chametz was nohig one day, only one day. But that raises the big question, which is, why does the pasuk tell us that the reason why we eat matzah is because right that they didn't liyachal l'smameya ki gershim Mitzrayim. Well, Nochera, they couldn't have chametz anyways. Now, the Rebbe points out something else in Amaimer. And Kutitera, the Rebbe points out that if you look at the pasuk, it says like this. It says that the Yidden went Ramses Sukkesa. They went from Ramses to Sukkes. Ramses is in Mitzrayim. That was the last stop in Mitzrayim. And then Sukkes was the first stop out of Mitzrayim. And then it says when they got to Sukkes, it says Vayoifu es habatzei kasher yetzium in Mitzrayim. They baked the dough which they took out of Mitzrayim. Ugeis matzos kiloi chametz. Verstehst? The pasuk is very clear. The dough they made while they were still in Mitzrayim. And then the 600,000 Yidden, they went out of Mitzrayim and they traveled to Sukkos. They get to Sukkos and that's where they bake the dough. No? What's the pashta question? It should have been chametz by then. And where wasn't their time? So yeah, there's a Targum Yonason, which I know the kids learn about in the school. Targum Yonason says that they had the chametz on their shoulders, and it was baked in the sun. But that's not pshuti shel mikra. It's not the way the pashta pshat in the pasuk. And it's not only that mishareisam. Targum Yonason says that's what mishareisam means. The Misharesa means the bowls that of the bowl doughs with their bowl doughs, dough bowls. Sorry, the dough bowls were on their shoulders and it was baked in the sun. But if you look in Rashi, he says Misharesa means something else. The shiuri matzah from the last night. So fretzich the shaila. So why didn't it rise? The Alter Rebbe has a million chiddush over here. The Alter Rebbe says the reason why it didn't rise, not because there wasn't time. He says because the Gili Elokus that was on the first day of Pesach, when the Eibishter himself came down to Mitzrayim. Ani v'le malach, ani v'le atz, the atz, batan atzmus and sof. This is the highest levels of the infinite Eir of Hashem came down to Mitzrayim. It caused a bittul in everyone and in everything, to the point that even the dough couldn't rise. The dough couldn't. It's made in the Chassidus. But if you look, and you look even in different Mefarshim, to what's pshat? And it's difficult to make out what the pasuk means, because the Alter Rebbe says the dough pasuk couldn't rise because the gili elokus was so strong that it was payil a bittul, and that also, by the way, explains in the Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash is a place with such a gili elokus, there can't be chametz over there, because when you're in the presence of the king, there's no place whatsoever for chametz all year long. Shavuot would be the exception because of the nature of the day, so there's a special exception. But when you're in front of the king, and that's the how Alter Rebbe explains the reason why the dough didn't rise on the first night, on the first day of Yom Tov. Anyways, everyone have a kashan of Freilich and Pesach, and the main thing is that we should take a bizeichen when we eat matzah. And something in matzah is the Rebbe Marash says when you're eating matzah, it's mamash like you're eating a lakos. You're eating this incredible levels of godliness, and we should open ourselves up to it, to the experience, and commit ourselves to doing what the Eibishter wants, and towards marching towards Matan Torah. And Taka, we should experience, all of us, the Geula from the Mitzrayim in our life, and all of us collectively should experience our Geula, and we should Taka have the Korban Pesach this year and celebrate Pesach in Yerushalayim.
Amen.